Voting rights activist Stacey Abrams appeared before lawmakers this week for a hearing on voting rights.
How did that go?
It went pretty well. I mean, she kind of knows her stuff, you know. Yeah. At one point, Republican Senator John Kennedy.
Tell me specifically, just give me a list of the provisions that you objected.
I object to the provisions that remove access to the right to vote, that shorten the federal runoff period from 9 weeks to 4 weeks. The guise of setting a standardized timeline, it makes it optional for counties that may be may not want to see expanded access to the right to vote. They can now limit their hours. Instead of those hours being from 7 to 7, they're now from 9 to 5 during business hours, during early voting. It limits the
Okay, I get the idea. I get the idea.
Yeah. Willie.
What?
What do you have in there?
Why do people...
He'd cut her off. It just, seriously, this guy, I guess they don't teach Matlock at Oxford because he sure made a mess of things for himself, didn't he, Willie?
That was the definition of getting more than you bargained for, as Stacey Abrams.
They do. She was elegant, she was measured, she kept coming back, and she mowed him down without lifting a finger.
She had information.
But my big question for Sam Stein is, or for anybody on this panel, is why in the world he was dealing with some like neophyte. He was condescending, he was arrogant, he was a moron.
Mika,
yeah, I mean,
don't say that about
actually,
an Oxford grad.
Did he? My question is,
Go
did
ahead.
NBC News app today.
The worst that could happen, at which point Jeff notes that he made a mistake, saying, I forgot the biggest fucking idiot I know was driving it. And then, I mean, I can't even show you the video. Jeff is swinging at incredibly dangerous high speeds. We then see the excavator seemingly a foot deep. We then see this quick glimpse of what appears to be Jeff kind of just dangling from this rope underwater. I mean, it's just this extremely upsetting, horrific situation. If anything, I mean, based off of what we publicly know, I think it speaks volumes about the loyalty that Jeff Wittick has from this happening. He almost killed somebody. Also, I wonder if in episode 3 we're gonna know if there was any sort of stunt coordinator, if they had insurance for this. Understand, David Dobr is lucky he's not in jail for this. You know, normally with a story like this, I'd be like, yeah, you know, in policy, but it's gonna be perceived by a ton of people that YouTube is protecting what they hope to be the comeback for one of their golden boys. Yeah, for now, that is where this ridiculous situation ends, and obviously we're gonna have to wait and see what other further fallout there is, what else we learn. I do want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts with all of this? Then we should definitely talk about updates around the Mark Rober story and backlash we covered earlier this week. Right, Rober, who revealed that his son is on the autism spectrum, is co-hosting a star-studded fundraiser with Jimmy Kimmel to raise funds for the charity Next for Autism. There's like Paige Lael, where she announced that on the same day as Rober's event, April 30th from 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And actually, I'll just let her speak for herself.
On the same day, April 30th from 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. EST. A bunch of my autistic TikTok friends and I will be dedicated to ASAN, which is an organization that we actually like. I personally will be guesting from 8 to 9 p.m. We may not raise $1 million, but we really want to raise awareness and raise our voices. We are sick of neurotypicals talking over us. We deserve to call the shots on our own disorder. Please consider donating.
Obviously, you know, in this situation, you have people making claims about Next for Autism making denials, but it felt very important to provide an update to this story because, you know, when you're talking about autistic people, we should probably hear from them as well. Then, a quick happy news update. Remember, you only have to subscribe to this channel to potentially win $5,000. Once the month's done, a randomly selected existing subscriber as well as a new subscriber for the month of April will get $5,000.
Why are you texting me?
I'm trying to give the people money. What have I ever done to make you think that I'm gonna text back? But yeah, just my way of yes, you do have Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer saying, yes, we are gonna bring this legislation to the floor. It is seemingly universally disliked by Republicans and even a few Democrats. And as far as the arguments you have against statehood, you have Republicans saying this is essentially just the Democrats going for a power grab. They're just trying to create these senators and their representatives, and in an overwhelming way, they do vote for Democrats. Yeah, big news, which on a personal note, I support the statehood for Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., but I don't think that we're gonna see it with this Senate. Then, apparently because Oklahoma didn't want Florida to have all the fun, Oklahoma seemingly has manslaughter, kind of. Specifically, what I'm talking about here is that Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed a bill yesterday that's giving immunity to drivers who run over people with their cars during protests. Under the new law, any driver who, quote, unintentionally causes injury or death to protesters cannot be held liable if they are fleeing from. The legislation also makes it a misdemeanor for anyone to obstruct a public street during demonstrations, with that being punishable by up to a year in prison and a $5,000 fine. But here's the thing, Florida and Oklahoma are by no means the only states proposing anti-protest legislation. You have legislators in Iowa approving with their cars. We're also seeing things like a Republican proposal in Indiana that would actually ban anyone convicted of unlawful assembly from holding state employment, including holding elected office. You've got a similar bill in Minnesota that would bar people convicted of unlawful protesting from receiving student loans, unemployment benefits, or housing. Profit law. GOP lawmakers in 34 states have introduced 81 anti-protest bills during the 2021 legislative session, more than twice as many proposals as in any other year. Though, of note, and we touched on this when we were talking about the Florida law, civil rights groups have already said that they are going to sue, with the ACL. People that are explaining this is, your car is getting swarmed and you're trying to escape. Do not think for a second there aren't people out there that think this is just the green light to mow down protesters. I hate saying that, but you know it's true. Then, we should definitely talk about President Biden in the news. Reportedly, he has not tripped out. The goal from Biden is very ambitious. And more than a decade later, the United States is barely even halfway to meeting the 10-year goal set by Obama. But according to the EPA in 2019, the most recent year where complete data is available, U.S. emissions were just 13% below 2005 levels. So this also brings the United States closer to other countries' goals. You had the UK pledging to cut its emissions by 68% in the same time frame. Just today, we saw Canada promising to reduce their emissions to at least 40% of 2005 levels by 2030. Japan pledging to cut 46% below their 2013 level. Any promises during the first day of the summit. In fact, China, which is already the world's biggest emitter, they just reaffirmed their previous target to reach peak emissions by 2030. But also, with all of this happening, there are some saying that Biden and these other world leaders are not doing enough. For example, climate activist Greta Thunberg released a video leaving out emissions from consumption of imported goods, as well as international aviation, shipping, and the burning of biomass, and saying, while we can, others and even ourselves, we cannot fool nature and physics. And ultimately, with this story, and honestly anything that stood out to you today, I'd love to know your thoughts on those.
News put up the body cam footage. They took out the part with the knife, and they took out the part from the 911 call where somebody actually reported that the girl had a knife in the first place. They just cut it out. The media are rooting for the cops to go down. That is all this is.
When a Columbus, Ohio police officer responding to a call gets out of his car and seconds later fatally shoots the 16-year-old girl. Officer Nicholas Reardon, who joined the force in December of 2019.
Then once you know what happened, there actually should be lessening questions, should there not? There should be a decrescendo of questioning, considering that we now know that the cop shot a black girl who was attempting to stab another black girl. But here's the thing. If the cop had never shown up, and nobody would have cared, nobody in the media, nobody in Black Lives Matter, not LeBron James, not the White House, they wouldn't have given two damns about that girl's life. How do I know? How do I know? I know that because it did happen, okay, in Cincinnati, Ohio, 2 days ago. A 13-year-old, about 7,500 black Americans who were killed in homicides. The vast majority of those people were killed by other black people because most crime in America is intraracial. I mean, seriously, this true absurdity that we are supposed to pay attention only.
I watched her and held her. All I could do was just hold her. Hold her.
Devastation, heartache, loss.
I tried to stop the bleeding.
It's just amazing. But don't worry, the questions are growing in Columbus. Not in Cincinnati, in Columbus. Here's Wolf Blitzer talking about the growing questions in Columbus.
We're also following developments in Columbus, Ohio, where there are now growing questions about the deadly police shooting of several times to get down before she seems to lunge at another girl and police open fire.
Okay. The growing seems to lunge, not lunges. Okay. And it was across the media. It was just lying about the case, just lying about it. He's Jason Johnson. He misleads about the case too, because that's what he does.
Nakia Bryant, a 16-year-old girl in Columbus, Ohio, called the police for help. An officer was on the scene, and in 22 seconds, he shot her dead. And
for Trayvon Martin, it was the hoodie and the Skittles, and for Nakia Bryant, it's TikTok videos. That's irrelevant to why the cop shot her. The cop didn't shoot her because she was making TikTok videos. He shot her because she was trying to stab another girl. We're in a battle for the culture and for our
tennis court, and that's just outside. The Innery, grand rooms, a bowling alley, $1 million. Courtney Wilson toured the estate.
Me and they say they're having a God's message, and I don't know what.
What's going on? What's going on? Hey, hey, hey! Get down! Get down! Get down! Get down!
No! You ain't shoot! You shot!
A third part, the George Floyd case, and he said, you know, that the cop had no choice or something to that effect. And my feeling is, I don't know if that's true or not. I really can't figure it out anymore. I mean, it seems to me...
Are dear, dear friends, and we've been dear friends for a long time, and dear friends oftentimes disagree. And Don is wrong here. You know, my question is, you know, why is deadly force always the first order of business? And it's acceptable for the police to shoot a 16-year-old 4 times in the chest over a fight. It goes from 0 to execution very, very quickly when there is a, 9 minutes and 26 seconds. She was 16 years old in foster care. Yes, she was wielding a knife, but there were other girls also allegedly attacking her. Let's compare apples to apples. 9 churchgoers. He was treated so kindly by police that he was taken to a Burger King. So was de-escalation a possibility? Here in this case, not with this black girl, not at all.
1.5, 2 years, or 275 years, however long back you want to go in American history. But I agree with Don Lemon. Don Lemon did not text me. I don't have that kind of relationship with him, apparently. But I will say, I want to think about the girl. She possibly could have hit an artery. She possibly could have killed the girl herself. I thought many things, too. I thought, where are the parents in this situation in foster care? Because after she was shot, a parent runs out and screams, "You shot my baby." Where was the parent?
What is going on here? Why are so many people
in parts of New Jersey, Jersey City, but parts of New Jersey? I saw people getting together and in fairly large numbers celebrating.
People that were cheering in the other side of New Jersey where you have large Arab...
Bottom line, I said, we want to get paid. He says, well, how can I stop this meeting? I said, it's relatively simple. Give me a check.
After several rounds of negotiations, Rosenberg says he and the other contractors settled.
Was complete, the Trump organization refused to pay what he billed and offered less than 1/3 of the fee. In Atlantic City, after hosting the Holyfield Foreman fight, the first ever pay-per-view event, Trump swindled millions from
a racist country. It reflects racial division. It means the cops are all racist. It means it's not a bug in the system, it's a system itself. That was what was creating the perception of division. Everybody agreed to that. And now I'm going to just get really selfish. I'm glad that he was found guilty on all charges.
Yeah.
Even if he might not be guilty of all charges. Oh, my God. I am glad that he is guilty of all charges because I want a verdict. Celebrate.
Right,
so we were dealing with what we thought was a sense of extortion, that if this didn't go a certain way, I'm speaking the truth. If it didn't go a certain way, there was going to be destruction. We know that. Why pretend otherwise?
Right. But here's the thing. He was. The jury found him guilty on all 3 charges, and beyond the criminal justice system adjudicating this issue, we all saw what happened with our own eyes. I don't think I need to relitigate the death of George Floyd because I doubt there's anyone watching who to flex his intellectual prowess by tweeting in response to Don Lemon saying justice has been served, quote, and we all know he would never have said this had the reverse verdict been reached. I mean, yeah, it's almost like a murderer being convicted of murder is different. Not being convicted of murder. Why would people think justice had been served if justice hadn't been served? The truth is that this shouldn't even be partisan, but because these Fox hosts are so fully entrenched in their brazen racism and all in service of Fox's overarching agenda. And in case you forget, which Fox News makes damn sure you won't, that agenda is to constantly remind you that black people equate to violence. Not to mention anything about why there's violence, not to mention anything about the spate of